Hannah and I have a special guest here today. This is Rachel. She is another PRS mom, and we were connected because we actually have the same plastic surgeon and the same ear, nose, and throat doctor, and we both have PRS kiddos, and yet we had a different kind of journey. And I know you guys have heard a lot about the surgeries Ava's been through, as well as her tongue lip adhesion, which I will link those videos below if you want to hear more detail about my experience. But what we don't have on this page yet is more about the jaw distraction or mandible distraction. Rachel's daughter, Ellie, did have a jaw distraction, and so she's here to tell us more about that. Do you want to start at the beginning? When did you find out about PRS, and what happened after you found out?
Yeah, well, we found out, actually, we got flagged at our level 2 ultrasound, which was our gender reveal, and it was because Ellie's chin was back further than they liked. So we go to our level 2 ultrasound, and they could not recreate that one chin image that we had. And so it was over a 3-hour ultrasound, and they kept tapping my stomach. And we walked away from that appointment with the doctor going, you have a 10% chance of something in the micrognathia realm happening to your daughter's chin.
And for people who, this is the first video, they're saying micrognathia is just a small jaw.
A small jaw, yeah. And he listed off a few other things it could be, and then he said, but I don't want you to worry about that because at this point it looks like everything's fine. We'll keep an eye on it. At 33 weeks, we ended up switching to a different OB office because my primary was switching to a different practice.
Oh,
so
that was intense then.
That
so
was intense. Yes, and
okay.
But the good news is I was already nervous, and so I ended up having like 8 or 9 ultrasounds between 20 weeks and 40 and a half weeks when she was born. Never found it. And to the point at 40 weeks, I asked the lady 8 different times, can you please check her chin one more time? Can you please?
Yeah.
And the lady puts her hand on my legs and goes, honey, your daughter's chin is fine. I'm not testing it again.
Oh,
we don't have to worry.
They do that. I hate to do that.
And so then the moment Ellie's born, literally seconds later, I look at her and I said, oh no, there's that one chin image that we could never recreate. There it is. So I knew instantly that we had something more.
Was she crying?
No, she was happy. She came. I put her on my chest, and she kept looking at me. And the one thing is, she breathed like a piggy. It sounded just like a baby piggy, but she was 40 and a half weeks. Yeah. So she was so strong that she just bobbed her head around for air.
Did they, at that point, had they already checked for a cleft?
No, they did not. So I was nervous. I didn't like her breathing, and I keep telling them, I want her to be checked. I want to see, I want her on the board. I want to know how much oxygen she has. Like, I'm playing 50 questions.
That was like smart though. How did you know to ask that?
Just as soon as I heard the piggy breathing, I'm like, I've already had 2 kids, so I'm like, this isn't normal.
Okay.
And they kept saying, some babies are like this. Don't worry.
No. I don't care. Do the test. Just calm me down. Help me
45 minutes later, they put her on the board because they're like, no, she'll be turning blue if she doesn't have enough oxygen. And I'm like, but I'm like, please. So finally, honey, all right, fine, we will. And they put her on, and her oxygen was like 73. They put her on her back.
Okay, out of curiosity, and I'm going to cut the name out, but which hospital did you deliver at? Is it the same one I did? So she was in the same hospital system, but not the same hospital as me. Yes. But then you did a medical transport to...
Yes, we had to do a medical transport after she was born. So they, Ellie was doing well enough that the NICU was able to keep her while I needed to stay checked in at the hospital. So I could just be wheeled down the hall and see her and then come back. So they coincided my release with Ellie's NICU med transport. So what they actually do, if anybody in here might have to have that, we did not have the high-level NICU nor the surgery site for that type of surgery. So they actually, at least in our area, they have a high-level neonatal transport team that is specifically transports babies. And Ellie was covered in wires and everything being monitored, and they had her actually lay on her little tummy, and she's strapped in. Every part of her body is strapped in, but she just slept. She was like, so cuddly and warm and full of blankets. Yeah, she slept. And so this transport team can also do your airbags. So they're worded also as an airvac team. They rented an ambulance through the local city.
Okay.
And then they transported her the 6 miles to get over to the other hospital where the surgery would be done and where all of her primary surgeries
Which is the
will
same
be.
one we were at.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we had the same doctors. Okay.
Yes.
I'm caught up now. Okay.
Yes. So Ellie did have a little bit of a different story.
Yeah.
On that.
So if they had seen stuff on the ultrasounds, is there a reason they didn't recommend going somewhere with a high-level NICU?
Because they never saw it again.
Because it was never confirmed,
Right.
and they just acted like everything was
Right.
probably fine.
Yes, and you know what the best part is? When we were originally with she stayed our doctor, but when we were at that first location where I delivered my other children, there's no NICU there.
Oh.
And it would be an hour's drive to get her sent to the children's hospital that is affiliated with that particular hospital. And then she still would have ended up having to go to the other hospital where the surgery would be performed.
Oh, man.
It would have been a nightmare. But yeah, the moment she was born, she would have been med-vaced away to somewhere where I would still have to be in the hospital.
I'm so glad it wasn't, because I've heard, just horror stories where they turn blue right away, and just that it wasn't more severe. I can't imagine.
Well, it ended up being more severe than we realized.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that. As soon as she was born, the primary doctor actually came to our hospital on her way home, which was super sweet after work, and she checked out our daughter, and at that point, she just ordered tests. Actually, didn't even let us know yet, and one of those was the sleep study.
Yeah.
And it took several days to get that done, so we ended up not getting the sleep study results back until the night before her surgery.
Oh.
And at that point, when we got those results back, that's when we realized she's way worse than she appears to be.
Right.
She failed that test abysmally. She was...
It's so scary.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to go back and ask. I don't remember them ever doing a sleep study for Ava. And I don't know if it's just because they already knew her breathing was not great.
Right.
But she seemed to be calm and okay with positioning. So I'm wondering, because Ava didn't put on weight for a long time because she was struggling to breathe. I wonder how her sleep study results would have been. It wouldn't have changed the path that we took because it did solve the problem.
Yeah.
But everyone is talking about sleep studies, and now I'm like, well, maybe I should have asked for one.
For us, the sleep study confirmed that we were doing the right thing with mandible distraction, because she was actually, I don't know if the word was aspirating. I know they test three different, there's 3 different ways that you can aspirate. And one is an obstruction, and there's another form of it, and then your brain doesn't tell your body to breathe.
Oh, scary.
Which is also common for Pierre-Robin babies to have that happen. Okay. Ellie did not have that one. Okay. Her brain was always telling her to breathe, but she was obstructing every 2 minutes at least.
So how much did the positioning help then? Was having her face down enough to kind of...
So what would happen is if she was on her back, her oxygen levels would be in the 70s, typically. Okay. And when she was on her stomach, her oxygen levels would bump to the 80s in the first few days, and after a few days they were in the 90s, which was very deceptive. But what happened where we got... Ellie gave us a misread. Because she was so strong, she was constantly bobbing her head around.
So
more than
she was
most
helping herself.
So the moment she was born, and I kept saying she was bobbing her head around a lot, she couldn't leave her head resting on my chest. Every couple of seconds, she'd bob it around again.
She was helping herself.
She was adjusting her own breathing on her. Yes.
Okay. These kids are incredible, and the more stories I hear, the more I'm like, how did that even work? I guess if you can't breathe, I'm moving around until I can breathe. Right. And it's crazy.
Yes, it was because of the sleep study that we found out she's way worse than we thought she was. Because she was constantly bobbing that little head around. She was figuring out her own breathing, but she was actually at risk, especially sleeping.
How did those conversations go then with the doctors when they started introducing the surgery solutions and what to do? Were you really overwhelmed because it was a surprise and you thought it was better than it was? Or?
Yes and no. So I had a gut feeling I had a few gut feelings before, even when we got pregnant with Ellie. It was really funny. I had a gut feeling we were going to deliver at the hospital that we did, even though my OB was still at her original practice down in our city. And I'm like, okay. And I just had that gut feeling. And when the ultrasound came through, once again, it was that same thing, and that's why I kept having them check. I just couldn't shake this feeling, and
something was wrong.
Yes, every medical eye that looked at it was telling me, no, everything's fine, and I just had this gut feeling. So when she was born, I was overwhelmed, but at the same time, I was like, and here we go. This is what I felt like was going to happen.
That's amazing.
What I did to not be a complete anxious wreck was I just turned my emotions off. And I went into business mode. And I'm like, this is the business of surgery and getting my baby potentially ready or not. So what happened, we got that first initial meeting, and our doctor told us, your daughter has Pierre-Robin sequence with cleft palate. And she had a little board, and she drew what it looks like and what's going on inside of her mouth. At that point, we did not see another specialist again until 2 days after Ellie was born, when she got transferred to the main hospital. They gave her a day to settle in, and then that Monday, Ellie was born Friday, transport happened on Sunday. Now Monday is when we started meeting with other specialists. Ellie's condition was on the fence. Yes. Of what should we do? Should we do nothing? Should we do tongue lip adhesion? Should we do mandible distraction? So the primary surgeon said, we are going to take 1 week and observe. We are not going to talk about it. We're just going to observe.
So the plastic surgeon said, right?
Yes, the plastic surgeon said
I'm trying to, without naming who our doctors are, keep them straight, because there's a lot of doctors. So that's, and that seems really smart, because then you can kind of gauge. So all specialists were on board knowing that. So then when her ENT comes in, he's looking, and it's just everyone's quietly looking at this point. And after these 7 days, that's when our primary surgeon met with us, and she gave us the list of, this is what it looks like if you choose nothing. This is what it looks like if you choose mandible. This is what it looks like if you choose the tongue lip. And she laid them out great for us. It was very thorough of cause and effect and benefits and pros and cons. She did that for us too. Well, and we're very, I would say maybe type A organized. Like Dan gets made fun of for spreadsheets, and I get made fun of for like to-do lists. So, we're both in that kind of.
I have both.
We came with like 2 pages of questions of like. And ours was a little different because Ava got to go home with just positioning. And so it wasn't until she was 6 weeks old when she wasn't putting on weight, because she didn't get back to her birth weight until a month old. And she started small. She was 5 pounds, 12 ounces, dropped to 5 pounds, 5 ounces. So she was tiny and just struggling to put on weight. And so at that point, they were like, so... like, we were doing like daily doctor appointments, like one specialist, next specialist, like everyone weighing on their own like scale, and it just got to the point where there wasn't a lot of pros to waiting, and like it was, thankfully my husband is very logical, because like I was in that position where I was like, I don't know how to make this choice, because I don't want her to struggle, but I also don't want to watch my baby in surgery if I can avoid it. So then how do you... so you guys were waiting the week, and then she laid out the pros and cons. How did you decide? Was it just a gut thing again, or...
Great question. Well, part of it was a gut thing. After we saw her the first time, on day 1 well, it would have been Friday. We didn't talk about surgeries at that point, but on Sunday we did see her again, and she just quickly mentioned there are these primary surgeries that are done. And my husband and I didn't say anything, because we wanted to do tongue lip adhesion. We really did. We liked the idea of no scarring, and this was just very brief that she quickly mentioned them. And that morning we're driving back to the hospital, and I finally had to tell him I had a feeling it needed to be the mandible distraction. I just could not shake it. And I just said, do you have a feeling of what we should be doing here? What do you think? And he goes, honestly, I think we need to do mandible distraction. And it was just
That's
like,
amazing.
okay.
Right? Like,
So we
we're on the
didn't
same
have to
page.
talk about what they are yet because this was
Okay.
just 3 days after she was born.
Okay.
I mean, surgery wasn't even on the table yet,
Yeah.
really. It was like observation. You have the choice to go home, but we're
Yeah.
letting you know there's a very high possibility she's coming right back into this
Yeah.
hospital.
Then you're like, I'd rather have her safe in here.
Yeah, well, and you know, one of the things that made it easy to rule that one out was because her oxygen would kind of go up and down and all that, and she would need to have the special lay-down car seat. Did Ava
Yeah.
need that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, she didn't. Okay.
Mm-mm.
See, Ellie needed a lay-down car seat. She was never
Yeah.
going to be allowed to have a normal car
Oh,
seat.
yeah,
She was
yeah.
never allowed on her back at any time.
That's really interesting because even without like the medical actual feedback,
Yeah.
there's already really big differences between Ellie and Ava's cases.
Yes.
Just in how they can move and what they sound like, and the sleep study, like
Yes.
how much their breathing is stopping.
Yeah.
Okay, that helps because it's really since starting the vlog, I've heard a lot of stories and talked to a lot of people, and it's hard because, like you said, if you're just presented with these options, you want to go least invasive, like less scarring, less risk, like you don't want to do the whole shebang,
Right.
but like at a certain point that is the best path.
Right.
But it's hard to know if like you've never heard all the stories or if you haven't.
And we're not medical backgrounds.
No, me
so, yeah, for us this was so foreign to have to be presented with this and have to choose what to do.
Okay.
Because we have nothing to do with the medical field other than we know friends who are in it.
Well, and Ava had been like for 6 weeks, we could kind of make do with positioning, and then it was just like she's not thriving.
Yeah.
And we're putting all the calories in that we can. We're keeping her as calm as we can. Like that was kind of a thing. Like obviously babies cry, but like the more you can like soothe her, then she's not burning the extra calories of crying. Like the calorie counting is.
Yes.
You probably know, but like, okay.
Yes.
So
I asked the question, if we take her home, what risks are we looking at, especially SIDS? That was I was terrified. And they go, we're not willing to tell you because her chances are so high. Right? And then I'm like, and we're staying.
Yeah.
So at that point, we knew we needed to do surgery.
Okay.
Because just hearing the fact that we needed lie-down car seats, and they're like, everything you know about babies, everything you did with your first 2 kids, it's now opposite.
Yeah.
And hearing those risks, I'm like, we have to. It really was not even a thought at that point or a consideration. Now, if we were able to have a normal car seat, we would have done the same thing. I can tell you right now that would have probably been how we started. But for us needing the lie-down car seat and
well, and basically Ellie was telling you like something's funky here, and like I can't.
Yeah.
My range of normal is so shifted that I'm going to need something major to get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for us, what happened, the sleep study had been ordered right away by the doctor because she's just like, I don't like what I'm seeing. Yeah. We're ordering every test that we need to beforehand.
Yeah.
And just so she could have all the information laid before her. And, okay, so after we get the list of everything and what to do, the doctor basically, she still told us, okay, it's your choice. Yeah. And luckily... And
if you guys watch mine, you know that our plastic surgeon also kind of ultimately did that for us.
Yeah.
We're like, it's enough on the line where we could, I think, do either, which is both helpful because then like you don't feel pushed into anything, but also can be overwhelming because then it feels like the ownership of consequences on you.
Yeah. I lived in the what ifs for a whole week. All I could do, I'm trying to take care of baby and NICU and heal myself.
And you have kids at home.
And kids at home and get home to get them to school and all that, see, it was a lot.
Did you ever like have, you're like in business mode and like, I'm interesting, we're in like certain crises. I'm not crying, I'm just like, okay, what do I need? Where am I going? Yeah. But like, there's moments in those where like you have like a second of calm and you're like, oh my goodness, this is happening, and you like are crying. Like, did you have anything like that, or were you just like
every night when I went to bed. Yeah.
Well,
when I lay there and I had
your
to,
baby's not home. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And so what our schedule looked like, since we had kids who were already in school, was we needed to be home for them too.
Yeah.
And so we left the hospital at 6 o'clock at night every day, and we would see them off to school, and then we immediately drove up to the hospital, and we stayed at the hospital until about 6 p.m.
Okay.
That continued. Ellie was in the hospital for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And so right at about 2.5 weeks, she started figuring out we were leaving. And at about 6 o'clock, she would start getting very stirry and grumpy. And so then my husband started staying at the hospital, and then I drove home and did the home shift with the kids, mainly because I was also exclusively pumping. And I actually exclusively pumped for 11 months.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
My Everest.
Right,
but,
it was so hard.
Yes, but they told me, they're like, okay, she can't get sick. You know, with the cleft palate, they're like, you have to be careful of this.
Yeah.
So
it's how you can protect them.
It is.
Yeah.
So I rented a hospital pump.
Yep.
So that's why I told my husband, I'm like, I don't want nurses coming in all the time. I'm already on an alarm to be pumping every 2 hours. Like, I'm only sleeping maybe an hour at a time. So I was the one who came home, so at least I could have an hour of quiet. But it was in those moments where it would just... Every night my body would decompress a little bit from the stress, but I really didn't get to decompress until after the first surgery was over. Yeah. But even then, because we chose mandible distraction, we knew 8 weeks later we were coming back. Yeah. So really it was like holding my breath again.
Okay, so we have so much more to share on this story, but because this video is getting really long, we're going to cut it and then continue it later. So stay tuned, another one is coming soon. Bye! Say hi, Ellie. Here you go.
Hi, Ellie. Hello.
Yay! Mabel's here too. Oh, Mabel! Oh, no!